Hey there YouTube, how's it going? Nerdy Narwhal here, and I'm back again today to take another look at a 6 scale action figure. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Asmus Crown Series Lord of the Rings Gandalf the White. Now I've been with Asmus since the very beginning. I remember their very first Gandalf the White and how controversially that turned out, as well as their promises of sending out upgraded heads, massive promises that never really got fulfilled. But I stuck with them because I saw the potential, and now here we are. I really feel like things have come full circle with Asmus, and they are giving us the high-end Lord of the Ring action figures that I've always wanted from them. Anyways, we're going to dive in and take a look now. Thank you for joining me. Let's hop in. Now, I want to start this review by taking a look at some of the things that I don't currently have included on the figure. And in this case, that's just going to be a couple of hands. First of all, he's going to come with this dramatic splayed out hand. It's really cool if you wanted to have him casting a spell with his fingers or something. I like that. The other hand he has is this pointing hand. Again, cool little hand. He has two alternate gripping hands, similar to the ones that I currently have him posed with, but these look like they will hold his accessories a little bit looser. He has this more relaxed kind of gesturing hand right there. He has this left hand here. Looks like he's hanging on to something, maybe his horse. And then he has two regular old man relaxed hands. And now you might have noticed, but for all of these hands, Asmus has really gone into detail to give us the wrinkly look of what an old man wizard's hands might look like. They're covered in vascularity, excellent paintwork, skin tone. There's some reddening around the knuckles. It looks like blood is flowing through these hands. It's just really awesome work. I haven't seen these hands used for any of their other figures. So I'm happy that we got those hands at such a high quality. The hands that I currently have on the figure are just going to be his regular gripping hands, and I really don't see any reason to change that out. I can have him now holding his awesome wizard staff as well as his sword. So let's talk about those. First of all, I'm going to slide that out. We can talk about Gandalf's staff. There we go. And this is what we've got. It's about as tall as the figure itself, maybe just a couple of millimeters taller. And it has some real wonderful detail at the head there. The bottom is going to be just plain white, and they did a pretty good job of making it look like a kind of a painted piece of wood. I'm not sure if any of that detail's coming through. But that's it. It's pretty basic, but also pretty essential to the character. That is Gandalf's wizard staff. Let's T-pose the figure out, and you can have a sneak peek at how wonderful that outfit is. And we will take out his sword now, Glamdring, and go into some of the details on that sword. I hope it's coming up on camera, but there is inscripted Elvish wording running all along the blade, which will be accurate to Glamdring, and it looks really nice. The sword itself is a nice quality die-cast metal, which does not bend to the touch, so that feels very sturdy and like it will last a very long time. And that's good. And now that's also just about going to wrap it up for accessories that this guy comes with, unless you count, you know, the belts and all that. The holster for Glamdring is pretty basic stuff. The scabbard, the sheath, it's just accurate, but it is just basic and white. It looks good. It works great. The sword fits in there. It's awesome. But everything else that makes this figure great is going to come down to the sculpting quality of the body used and the fabric goods. So now let's talk about all that, starting with this head sculpt. Now this is what is going to make or break any 6-scale action figure that's based on the likeness of a real person, in this case, Ian McClellan. Now, many of you might remember I took a look on this channel at the Viper Studios Gandalf the White, and to this day, it's probably the finest action figure that I have ever had the privilege of taking a look at on this channel. That said, sadly, I don't have that figure anymore to do a direct comparison. No, I sold that figure once this piece got announced. Not for any other reason than the promotional pieces for this figure looked really, really good, and it cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $300 to $400. And if you're doing some hunting, you can still get this guy that cheap, if not even cheaper. I've seen it go in the high 200s in some cases. So yeah, I sold that Viper Studios Gandalf for what I thought was a pretty fair deal. Picked up some other figures with it, as well as this one. Now, the Viper Studios Gandalf, if you do want the absolute best, and I will not argue that that figure still reigns supreme, it is the absolute best, that's going to cost you $700 to $900. So a very big difference. Now, with that said, I don't think that the quality difference between what we saw with the Viper Studios Gandalf and this current figure from Asmus is, well, let me run the quick math on that, is $300 to $400 worth of quality differences. In fact, the only things that I really fondly remember from the Viper Studios Gandalf compared to this is the sturdier body and the head sculpt that I really don't feel like I need to make any modifications to. I need to go back and take a look at Ian McClellan in the second and third movies for The Lord of the Rings to see if that beard doesn't need just a little tiny bit of trim. But other than that, this head sculpt is about as accurate as it gets. And it's really comparable to that Viper Studios sculpt. There's a nice natural wetness to the eyes. Even the mustache is rooted. Try to get it from a couple of different angles so you can see it in different lighting. I have some warm room lighting as well as some natural lighting happening right now. Just to kind of try and give you the best approach to this sculpt, but it looks really alive. It's a wonderful, wonderful sculpt of Sir Ian McClellan. And yeah, to me, it was worth it to maybe take a small dip in the quality, but to have something that also didn't cost $700 to $900 overall. Now, I think it's important for us to talk about the soft goods, because this is another part that I absolutely was blown away by on the Viper Studios figure, and particularly that is the cloak. The cloak on the Viper Studios hung super well and very naturally off the figure. Asmus, with this production piece, hasn't quite gotten it to the same degree as Viper Studios. The quality of the materials used are very comparable, but as you can see, I can fold that over his arm pretty naturally, tamp it, stick that up, put the his staff in there, and it's pretty darn good. I might need to futz with the cloak just a tiny bit more than I did with the other one, but still it's a really nice material, and it hangs off Gandalf in a very weighty and natural way. So it's a pretty close second. It's a pretty great figure, and as that cloak is so big and it's going to cover most of the figure, it is really important that they nailed that aspect of this figure, and I think they did. Now, with that said, let's go underneath the cloak and take a look at the other layers of this outfit, because it is a beautiful outfit and it is remarkably well layered. I'm going to just slide that back and we can get a look at the vest. The vest is a bit off-white, so it does contrast with the robes underneath pretty well. See if we get the focus there. Boom. But the stitching is intricate, and the texturing is incredible. The way that that differentiates itself from this, it really does look like a wonderful piece of fabric woven by elvish craftsmen. It's marvelous. And you can also see when the figure catches the light just right, the soft goods shirt underneath also has some inlay pattern work throughout, and it just looks wonderful. It looks incredible, especially when you get this figure moving around in various sources of light. The pattern work for the soft goods always catches your eye differently. It always offers something new. Let's come down here and get a look at the bottom portion of the figure. As you can see, the same pattern work, it's probably the same exact soft goods, is followed all the way down there from the shirt. And the shirt does have another layer that comes down here and covers his hands a little bit. He does have this skirt piece, which is going to match more closely to his overcoat itself. He has some nice cloth pants. Those fit the weather. They're a super soft fabric material. And it's all going to come down to, there we go, these little boots. Whoa! Catch the camera. These boots down here. Now, I remember the days when Asmus was giving us hard plastic boots and we're leaving out ball pegs to save costs or what, I don't know. But these are a very nice full fabric boot, and the ankle joints are also going to be very tight to offer a good range of motion and hold the figure in any kind of pose you could want. Now, you might need to do some futzing and fiddling to get the boot on straight or to not look too wrinkly, but really most of that's going to be covered up most of the time by the rest of the robes that Gandalf is wearing. So I think Asmus did a wonderful job. The heels on the boots all look very natural and very well made once again. So as far as the soft goods go, they knocked it out of the park, which really I feel like they had to do because they had some competition, and they also had to cleanse our palate of their very first Gandalf release, which was not the greatest, to say the least. Now, I'm sure you probably saw it as we were looking at the feet, but this Gandalf figure does come on a really nice, grassy, let me get him posed up real quick, get those feet flush in the ground there. Really nice semi-diorama display base here. That grass work looks really good. really natural. And it does look like a field in Rohan, which I think is all we really could have asked for. I love a good diorama display base, and honestly, for most of my figures that came with blank display bases, I've done similar stuff, and I've had friends help me to just make a nice, simple grass display base like that, because I feel like it really adds a lot to a figure. The only other piece that he comes with that I haven't talked about yet is going to be that horse in the back there. And you can post Gandalf riding it, or you can just have it in the background. For me, it serves as almost more of a diorama piece, but pick it up by its face. It looks great. Once again, there's a lot of solid texturing going throughout the body here. A nice full mane. And a really lifelike painted face. I feel like it is going to be easier for any 6-scale company to make an animal or a monster look more lifelike than a person. So Asmus kind of lucked out with that. But the fact that they even included a horse with this figure really makes it worth the price of admission. That's Shadowfax. That's Gandalf's steed, and it wasn't necessary for them to give it to us, but they did, and this entire release is all the more better because of it. So what I'm going to do now is get Gandalf set back up on his 6-scale display base, and finally we will go in to Articulation. Now, when Asmus first got into the 6-scale collecting game, they were using caustic plastic bodies. Those bodies were pretty good, hit or miss, I guess, at times. There was the huge factory error that came with the use of, the bodies that they used for the original Ring Wraith. Those kind of sucked, but for the most part, the caustic plastic bodies got the job done just fine, even if the figures weren't quite as good as what Hot Toys were using. So yeah, the caustic plastic bodies weren't to the same level of what the best in the industry were doing, but they have switched it up and they've gone with a new body. And I think this is a proprietary body that caustic plastic, or not caustic plastic, but that Asmus has developed for themselves. And it's really the only thing that I don't like quite as much as I did for the Viper release. It'll hold the poses really well, but it feels lighter, if that makes sense. There's a little more jank going on. But that said, that was a high-end custom piece with a high-end custom body, and this is a mass-produced figure. And for a mass-produced figure, I think it's a pretty solid body. So let's go into the articulation. First of all, that head sculpt is going to look down very far with that Asmus double jointed ball in there. Gandalf is going to look up again pretty darn far, like so. All right, let's get that back looking forward, and we will dive into the arms. So the arms are going to go out real far and go up, actually, and you could hear that. There is some ratcheting going on with those new joints, and they're gonna go back down, and they're gonna rotate forward just as much as you could want until they get hindered by the cloth goods themselves. Let's rotate Gandalf to the side again and get a look at the range in that double jointed elbow. It's a goodly amount of range. He's going to come to about 45 degrees. It's kind of hard to make out because of how the soft goods fold around those joints. But as you can see, if Gandalf had a cell phone, he'd be able to hold it up to his ear and talk. He wouldn't be that old guy using speakerphone like I do. Now, there is going to be some range in the torso, but not a whole lot. Just right above that diaphragm there, you'll be able to get just a few millimeters of motion. There is some rubber muscle material, it feels like, over the body in there. I don't know why. It's really unnecessary, but that's what Asmus did, and that's okay. And that's going to bring us to the hips and the lower legs. Gandalf can kick out all the way to there, just above 90 degrees. He has a double jointed knee, which is going to go all the way back to there. And as we already looked at, those ankles are going to give you a ton of motion for any sort of poses you could want. So I will say, compared to the Viper Studios body, which did feel a little bit sturdier, this one articulates way more. That body had single jointed elbows, I think double jointed knees, but for a figure, and honestly, Gandalf did have quite a few action scenes. I feel like you kind of want something that's going to articulate to its maximum potential. And Asmus has given us that. My biggest gripe with those caustic plastic bodies was that they had single jointed knees. And for all the characters like Aragorn or Gandalf or anybody, I wanted double jointed knees to do some nice deep crouching poses, action poses, kneeling poses, what have you. And so I'm glad to see that that's finally been rectified with Asmus's new body. They've given us double jointed knees, and that's all I could ever really ask for if they were going to go about improving what was already working pretty good. And there we have it. I figured let's get one more good pose out of Gandalf to really show off some of the strengths of the joints, how well they can hold the accessories, drape that cloak down a little bit, and give you some of my closing thoughts. Ultimately, this is an awesome figure, and we're at a period of time right now where you can find it for less than it retailed for. If you can score this guy for $285 up to $350, I say you absolutely should jump on it, because not only are you getting an absolute masterpiece of a 6-scale action figure, honestly, in my opinion, it's one of the best that have been mass produced in this industry for a very long time. But you are also getting the horse, and you are getting the semi-diorama display base. And it all comes in this massive package that you see behind you. The presentation is all there. Opening this one up is very fun. What's less fun is putting it all together. The head comes separately, but you know what? Whatever. It all works. It's a fun piece to open, and it's an excellent piece to have on display in your shelves. So if you've been on the fence, I say absolutely, without hesitation, you should be hunting down this piece to get one for your medieval, fantasy, sword and sorcery displays, or maybe you just have a My Favorite Movie display. Whatever. Maybe you're going to put this guy on a display all by himself. It will do the heavy lifting. The shelf presence is just about unmatched by anything other than maybe an excellent Darth Vader action figure. It is absolutely pristine. And now if you want the absolute best of the best for this character, you should probably still try to hunt down the Viper Studios Gandalf the White. But if this is going to be enough for you, it's absolutely enough for me, and I've owned both pieces. So take that, do with that as you will. Anyways, I figured that what better piece to look at on a Sunday morning than this, the most famous Maiar of Tolkien's Legendarium, which is essentially one of Tolkien's angels. I will leave you guys with that. Let me know if you picked this up or if there's anything that I failed to look at for this piece, any questions that you might have, because I will gladly answer them. Anyway, stay happy, stay healthy, and keep on collecting. Bye-bye, YouTube.